Guys, I think I finally found it. So, during my Sean's Yearly Reviews series, I've come across a lot of animated films that I would throw into the category of either being average or mediocre. And full stop, The Monkey King Hero is Back 2015 is without question the most mid out of all of them.
Oh, but what about this thing, or maybe even that thing?
No, even those films have something to make them stand out in some way. I mean, I do still consider this movie to be better than Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, because that's a 5 out of 10 movie that borders on a 4. But I do consider this movie as one of the blandest that I've ever talked about so far on my channel. Like, do you remember when I said that Runes was one of the blandest shows that I've ever talked about in Sean's Network Reviews? Yeah, well, this movie is the Sean's Yearly Reviews equivalent of that show. So, what is the premise of this movie? Well, if you know about the story of the Monkey King, which has a surprising number of adaptations to its name, you'd know. However, this movie decides to pull a subversion to this, as the film revolves around a kid named Luyer, who spent most of his life with this monk after his mother sacrificed herself in order to save him. But when his village ends up getting invaded by a gang of trolls, he meets the Monkey King, who saves him. As the rest of the movie has the characters just goofing around, and that's all that I've got for this one. So, I watched this movie with a group of friends. As opposed to some of the other animated movies that I've been watching with them as of late, like a super progressive movie or the Emoji Movie, this one we barely had any reactions to whatsoever. I tried to make some jokes about the trolls that appeared in this movie just to lighten up the mood, because we often do that during watch-alongs, but not much really came out of that. While I was watching the movie, I was questioning to myself on what the issue with this movie was, but around the halfway point, it came to me on what the issue with this movie is. And that is the fact that this movie is the definition of style over substance. As in, the movie puts far more of its focus on action set pieces and how cool that the fights are, instead of its story and characters. Most of the film just lingers on unimportant junk happening, like the pig character being able to transform into other things, or the Monkey King himself being chased by this rock monster, but you can literally just cut those sequences out entirely and you'd miss nothing. Also, I am not joking when I say that most of the characters who appear in this movie are either uninteresting or completely pointless. What was the point of this pig being in the movie? All he does throughout this entire film is act clumsy, break things, or basically say and do things that weren't the bro thinks he's on the team meme. He's just the movie's attempt at a comic relief that is annoying and just exists as a walking fat joke. And this baby girl just exists as an object. She's literally just there and does nothing throughout the film. They don't even attempt to try and do sequences that emphasize that she's more important than the movie lets on, as opposed to Storks, which, reminder, did more with its baby character than this movie does. And that film is far more comedic than this movie is. Also, a lot like Spark a Space Tale, this movie feels extremely undercooked in that nothing feels foreshadowed at all, and other sequences go absolutely nowhere. Like, for instance, there's this one couple whom, according to the film's synopsis, are basically trolls in disguise. However, in the film itself, it basically portrays itself as nothing more than them being a happy couple. There's a moment where the wife has a disguise on, but they don't do anything with it. She basically keeps the disguise on from the sequence where more trolls come into the house all the way to her defeat. Like, she does try to capture the baby, but the movie literally doesn't even attempt to make it clear that she's one of the trolls, and it implies that she's actually a snake woman. Also, if it wasn't made clear that she's actually evil, the movie would have had these implications that they were going out of their way to destroy their home, especially Pigsy. And in out-of-context clips, the sequence where they crush her underneath a door is just horrendous. Also, the villain of this movie is just so weak. Not only is he not properly foreshadowed in this movie, the only bit of context that we get beforehand is in relation to the trolls themselves. Like, we don't get to see him in the movie until the sequence where they try to get away from the trolls by going on a boat, but the movie reveals that he's trying to sacrifice literal infants in order to gain magical powers. Magical powers which, mind you, he seems to already have enough of. And it really says a a lot about how poorly constructed that this movie is, when the literal Wikipedia article makes it more clear about what the movie is trying to do than how it's executed in the movie itself. Sorry I didn't have that much to talk about regarding this movie, but there really isn't that much to comment on, especially when compared to the last few movies I reviewed. I guess I'll say that of the movies that I reviewed that was distributed by Viva Kids, this one is the best out of all of them, because at most, this movie left me feeling nothing, whereas Lewis and the Aliens and Monster Family left me feeling uncomfortable or baffled, but that's not much of a compliment, because the only thing that I said around the end of my watch along with others regarding this movie was, eh.
Coming up next, it's
Aloha Scooby-Doo, an all-new full-length animated mystery from the Kids Movie Collection. And there's a mystery going down.
Everything